Good morning. Happy Friday. What? Who's that? That's not Morgan. What the heck?
I'm Morgan. What are you talking about? I've been working out, brushing my teeth.
Well, good morning, Jordan. Thank you for joining us today. And hello, everyone. Welcome to a different edition of the Power Hour. This is going to be fun.
I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
It was really exciting when I first met Jordan. We started talking about go-to-market, and it's always exciting to talk to somebody that knows a lot more than you do. And what's that joke about? Like you feel like you're Mount Stupid, and you're looking down. And you're like, oh my god, there's so much more to learn. And it was so exciting. And then when you said you'd love to come on and talk to everyone, I was super excited because this is not something people normally get to see. It kind of happens in the boardrooms or the reps are trying to do it on their own. It's never done at this scale. So it's going to be really exciting to talk. And I really loved your how you broke down the go-to-market problems and like that life cycle, because I have worked in every one of those companies where from sales to marketing to, okay, maybe we got to go and change the product. So I look forward to diving into that. But hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We got lots of different companies that are going to be hopefully new fans. And as you guys are seeing as you're rolling in, no Morgan today. We got Jordan. And he's got a killer presentation for us today with some real life go-to-market hot takes that you guys will be able to run away with, target a little smarter, understand the pain that makes somebody want to move now instead of, living on a hope and a prayer and the spray and pray, because my LinkedIn DMs could do with a lot less.
I see. Hey, Nicholas, I see that you're in the computer software industry and we share similar interests. I'd love to connect here. How many of those messages have you got?
So, I started talking about beer on the show, and it always amazes me when somebody's like, I know you like beer, but have you heard of this? And I'm like, damn it. If you want to personalize and it has nothing to do with my business and you want to go and sell me something and you talk about beer and then roll it back into whatever you're selling, unfortunately, there's a very good chance I'll take that meeting if you lead with something other than Bud Light or like Heineken or something that, requires a little bit of a palate.
Have you been to the Bissell Brothers in Portland, Maine?
No, I haven't.
Oh. And there's a lesson here. So the Bissell Brothers, so if you go to their website, it's fantastic. You scroll down and their frequently asked questions are just a series of no's. It's like, do you ship your beer elsewhere? No. Can you buy it anywhere but the tap room? No. And so talk about an exercise in focus. Yeah, they are focused, right? So we're talking about that go-to-market today and focus here. And the Bissell Brothers are like a master class in focus.
I told Morgan that if we ever do live events in person, that he's like, yeah, we'll go and figure out like where our audience is, and we'll go there. It's like, or we can go where there's great beer, and then people go there too.
Yeah, make
it's like I don't feel like people would be okay with that.
That's great.
Okay, we got Tracy, Sarah, Jeffrey, Rubens,
yeah, we got
Natasha, Vivian. Sarah Johnson, nice you to join us. We got somebody that's blanked out. I'm not sure who that is. And thank you, anybody, as you're going through and we're getting into this, tag anybody that you think should be here, because then they'll get to go and join us, or you can watch the recording later. So thank you very much. Now, Jordan, man of the hour, this power hour. What is going on with go-to-market right now?
Oh boy. Yeah, this is so you're gonna have to stop me if I go on too long, but what we see time and time again is that when everyone starts a business, they'll throw a bunch of spaghetti at the wall, and like this was what everyone does. Like, there's nothing wrong, and you got to try different walls. You got to try a little rigatoni. You got to try a little bucatini. You got to try different size walls. And so the founder will have tried throwing so much different spaghetti at so many different walls. And what will happen is it will start to work and you'll start to see some traction. And then what will happen is once you get some sort of traction and there's an inflection point. Now, sometimes this is like forced traction where you raise a bunch of money and you have to go scale, even if you kind of don't feel comfortable, you don't have product market fit. There could be some external factors that make you go to market too soon, right? That you wouldn't want to go to market this soon. But like, let's say in the best case scenario where you have some version of product market fit,
Mhm.
and the flaw in thinking here is the founder that has spent 5 to 10 years in the industry working with these types of customers. They've tried 100 different things. They know the two that work well, and and the 98 that just fail miserably. They hired their first sales rep and they say, I'm not a professional salesperson. Nicholas, you're a professional salesperson. I don't even know how to do sales. So you go do sales. And by the way, I'm not going to teach you about a product. I'm not going to teach you about what we don't know, what we learned that we don't know, right? I'm not going to teach you about all the things that failed. Your quota starts now. Go sell. And they say, but don't worry, I gave you Sales Navigator and Zoom Info. Aren't you prepared? Um, and so this is what leads to I'm going to go tell as many people that I can find that like beer that I like beer too. And then it's like, could you use my B2B SaaS software solution for whatever, right? So the the problem with this thinking is a couple fold. The first is that it's a download of context that needs to happen. So the founder needs to say, here's who we sell to, here's our buyer, here's our ideal customer profile, here are their pain points, here's the 98 things that we tried that don't work, right? We tried going into these folks. Here's some industry context. Um, and then also here's my unique insight that I have about our customers. Here's what our customers have learned after using our product that they didn't know before. And
Mhm.
that insight is hard. And there's like, besides the founder not doing this for their first sales rep, the other failure here is they go too wide. So we're going to actually look at
We're
some
gonna tackle
companies.
everything.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so I talked about this on LinkedIn today. Is that they go to market with a buffet, and people don't go to a buffet for great sushi and a great burrito. They're like, this is the cheapest place for me to get the most volume of food, right? And so that's like a great play for Costco where you're like, hey, I'm just like Drift, but I'm 1/100th the price. There's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with doing that, right? Like HubSpot's like, hey, you can get chat for us for free. Um, but if you're going to market with a differentiated product, it's best to niche down, pick one ideal customer, go to market with one persona, and then just get amazing about understanding their pain, about going to market based on the insights that your customers have. And that's
Mhm.
really, really hard. And it becomes 10 times harder if you talk to 3, 4, 5 different segments with 10, 12, 6 different use cases.
And it's hard too with being the salesperson because so you're spraying
Oh
and praying, and
gosh.
so somebody calls you back, and you're like, "Hey, Jordan, can I don't remember why I called you. Can I call you back when I'm in front of my computer to see who you are and what the heck I was trying to sell at that very moment that I
Oh my
decided to
god.
call you?"
I have been in that situation doing founder led sales, where people will call me and I'm like, who is this? And like, who's this? I play that game, right? Where it's like, oh, are you calling about my dog catcher product or my hats product? Like it's so it becomes really hard. But the problem actually, like, so you can overcome that. You can with some trickery. But the challenge is that you don't know enough about the dog catcher versus the person that wants to wear that wants to wear a hat. You don't have an understanding of their business because as a sales rep you're not told about the customers. You don't get any of that education about what they're benefiting, what they would have done without you, right? What is
Yeah.
their default state, right? So you need to, this is the challenger sale, right? It's like you need to understand more about their business in terms of the problem that you solve than they do, and that is a high bar.
And I don't even know if it's the problem as much it is that mindset shift too is the one thing that really surprised me from Challenger is, okay, what is so good that if you told them what was going on, it would completely change their point of view that they'd want to
Yeah.
unlearn what they're doing right now
Yeah.
in order to make that change to a new solution, which will eventually lead to you. But
Yeah.
first, how many deals die on the boardroom table when you're not there because they're arguing over what a solution actually looks like, not a supplier.
Yeah, yeah, and it's funny, some of the stuff that we'll when we do some go-to-market hot takes, looking at a variety of those businesses, they're on all ends of the spectrum, right? Some people are like, "Well, we sell a little bit of everything to a little bit of everyone." And then there's on the kind of other side, there's like the Alice, which is like AI gifting. It's like so specific, and if you look at the marketing copy between some of the types of tools that we'll look at today, um, I think Alice has done a pretty good job here because they can focus in on there's just like really clever things like the 5 to 9, right? It's like we focus on the people that are what they care about in the 5 to 9, right? And it's even that level of messaging, like, oh, okay, you get it because they've spent a lot of time thinking about how can we just go really, really deep on this niche and on this problem of like channel saturation and really stand out. And it just makes all the difference when going to market.
And yeah, just thinking about how that would roll for the mindset shift, but it's a beautiful
Well,
compliment versus the standard personalization that lands in your email.
yeah, and well, you talk about the mindset shift. This is hard because, like, so placing myself in, if I was sort of a SDR being hired today at a company, the first thing I would do is I would say, don't put me on a quota for the first quarter. Let me go evaluate what you've tried, what's working. I want to know who your customers are. I want to like have a conversation with them. I want to have a conversation with the customer success folks. I want to and I'll drop some links in the show notes too about how we do this for our customers, so that
Mhm.
you can use these resources. But I would become the biggest expert on your existing customers, so that when you talk to the next one, you have that language in your head. And that is so Nicholas, is so hard to do. And when you're of the mindset that I just need activities, and activity is a really important thing, right? Like that, you're not going to get sales unless you keep knocking on doors. Like that's for sure. Some an immutable law of sales. But the problem is that if you don't know what to say when the door opens, that you're going to get more doors slammed in your face. And so this is the concept of sharpening the sword that uh, the laws of habits of highly effective people. Dave, I forget his last name, but
Yeah, it
uh,
makes sense to habit stack. Then
yeah,
it also goes into like, so if you're selling fridges, when's the best time to buy a fridge?
when you move, probably, yeah,
Or when it doesn't work, or when
yeah,
it's starting to like fail, right? But most of the
yeah.
time people ignore that, and then what happens? It dies.
Well, and
And
let's
then
let's take that metaphor a little bit deeper. Like, so
okay.
when's the best time to buy a fridge? Hey, do you notice that your lettuce is wilting in the first week that you buy it? And they're like, yeah, isn't that just normal? And it's like, actually, with a new fridge, you can keep lettuce for 8 weeks instead of 1 week. And they're like, I had no idea. I had no idea that my lettuce wouldn't. And it's like, how much do you spend on groceries that go bad? Oh, well, I probably spend about $1,000 a month. And all right, what if that goes bad? Oh, $200 a month goes bad. Wow, $200 a month. So now you can reverse into what the opportunity cost of an old refrigerator, right? But it's not like someone looks at their refrigerator and says, I need a new refrigerator. They think about it in the jobs to be done framework. Where like, I'm throwing away food. And I may
Mhm.
not even realize that, wow, refrigerator technology has come so far that I can keep your yogurt good for like 3 years. It's like, wow, okay, I never have to throw yogurt away again. So you can buy 10 times as much at the grocery store and then never have to go back because of this new refrigerator. But that's what a good refrigerator salesman would do.
Yeah, they quantify the problem by pointing out what's happening right now because they think it's good enough. Hey, do you
That's
know
right.
that you're spending $2,400 on
Yeah.
throwing away groceries that are going bad in your fridge?
Yep, that's exactly right.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then yeah, transition. But the thing is, you have to sell the problem,
Yeah.
and they have to admit there's a problem before you sell the solution, before you sell yourself.
Yeah.
Why change? Why now? Why you?
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly right. And that journey is really important. It's so important. And so you see all the time, especially with these companies that are a little bit of everything for a little bit of everyone. The sales reps are the tip of a very ill positioned spear. And so that's the challenge, is that really when you get those bad sales emails, those are bad organizations that have prepared those people and put them in the thick of it. And with marketing, it's like, oh, so someone didn't click on a Facebook ad, right? Like, huh, right? Okay, so maybe your conversion rate could be better, but with sales, it's like you are saying, this is my representative, this is the person that represents our company. And so I always feel deep empathy for that person, because they they have an unlimited amounts of courage to go over and over and over again to do the same thing that works in low percentage numbers. And for some reason, the company doesn't have the wherewithal to think, how can we make this person 10x more effective? And the other
Mm.
thing, I could just go on forever about this. The the other thing that is just really frustrating is, because they're put on this treadmill, we have an incentive system that is such that they can't try to fix their own problems. So the person that knows the problem best is actually incentivized to keep working in the broken model, because if they don't, they're like, "How come you didn't produce this quarter?" So no one thinks about these as compound interest problems. That it's like, oh, okay, well, you're paying every day for this, but what you're doing is you're actually hurting tomorrow's business because of this in drastically and painful ways.
For economics in real life,
Yeah.
people will go in whatever you judge them on is what they'll do.
Yes, that's exactly. Incentives are just like one of the most powerful laws in the world.
And there's culture rolling in. If you're having these issues, it's red flags in the culture. A lot of you guys are looking for work. So you'll want to pay attention to these great companies that we're going to have coming up, because there are companies that are doing it right.
Yes. Yes, that's right. And shout out to Gorgeous specifically. Go get a job at Gorgeous. You'll notice that there was someone that looked at it back. Like, a lot of people will spin out of Google, but not as many people will spin out companies out of Apple. If you're looking to really understand what the very best modern version, go work at a company like Gorgeous. They're doing a lot of this stuff, and you'll see a lot of businesses come out of them, because the way that they go to market, is actually, a lot of people will take those and turn them into products. So I think like purplesonar.com came out of them. Um, uh, there's just like a handful of companies that have come, and then Gorgeous became the first customer. But that's like an example of a company that's doing go to market really, really, really right.
Well, I feel like everybody's on this edge of their seat. We just went and told them what's going on, how we look at it, and I think it's time to, show not tell. What do you think? Time to dive in?
Yeah, yeah. And before we dive into actual case studies, what I want to do is I want to frame the thinking here, and then we can talk about this. So, we talked a little bit high level about the thinking, but when it comes down to the nuts and bolts, what you need to this is how we'll start all of our engagements. It's like, download your customers' context, who bought, why they bought, what was their inflection point, what would they have done without you. Um, and so you need to do both a bottoms up analysis, right? This is for every customer, and a top down analysis, which is, what are the buying inflection points that companies have before they're ready to buy your product, right? The
Do
pain
you
that
want?
they have.
I was say, do you want to dive into the inflection points a little bit, just to give people like maybe two or three examples before we dive in, just so they can think about it?
Yeah, sure. So this is going to be a little bit different for every company, but like for Alice, let's speak about Alice.
Hmm.
So one of the inflection points before you might hire Alice is that you have come upon channel saturation, right? Is that like you've maxed out email, you're not getting good returns on other types of things before, on other channels, right? You're like, emails like tapped, Facebook is tapped, Google's tapped. I need to break through the noise.
Hmm.
Another kind of key moment here is maybe companies that are going up market now. They're selling to a buyer that is hard to get at, right? That that is maybe not on the traditional channels that they've used before, right? So those are like example types of inflection points. Like, let's, like, for example, pickleai.com, one of their inflection points, and we'll get into them when you do a hot take. Is like, capture and share key moments from Zoom meetings. So, for example, if you have no sales reps, you don't need Pickle. Why even prospect to anyone that doesn't have a sales team?
Hmm.
And so you might look at sales growth, right? When do they? And this comes from your customers. Like, I'm going to say things, and you're going to be like, "Oh, I'll copy that and bring it to my business." Like, no, you have to look at your customers. What are the inflection points of your customers? And so if you look at that and they say, "Okay, Well, it's really when we go from like SDRs to AEs, and it's really the inflection point between 5 to 10. At 5 SDRs, a combination of 5 SDRs and AEs, like we can kind of keep track of it, we know, but when we move to 10 in such a fast way, and we want to understand what they're saying to our customers, how they're saying it, share key moments, that's like the huge inflection point where people get a gigantic leap. But if you're at 100, maybe this is like actually not an efficient way to do it, that there's a better way to be able to share those learnings versus like sharing individualized clips that you
Hmm.
might need some sort of AI solution to like summarize a bunch of those meetings. So there is a sweet spot usually for a lot of companies, and it's about finding that from your existing customers.
I just noticed that everybody was asking about gorgeous. Lauren got it. It's Gorgias.
IAS. That's right. Yeah. So, and there are a handful of other companies that are doing this really right too. And so that's just like the one that came to the top of my head. Uh, um, yeah,
Sounds good. Did you wanna dive in, or do you?
yeah. I mean, I think that that's like it's going to be easier to understand the examples. Before I get into these examples, I don't want you to take them as tactics. People love tactics. Um, the way that I talk about this is like I'm going to point at the moon, and you're going to be like looking. You're going to be looking at my finger. Don't look at my finger. Like I'm pointing at the moon. Like this is you need to follow the process to understand who your customers are and their inflection points. This is me spending 10-15 minutes with each of the sites and saying like, it seems like this might be it. So you might be tempted to take these tactics and run with them. Do not do that. Instead, what you should do is these are places that you can look for some of that. But the way that Outbound gets better is when you bring a unique insight to your lead that your competitor can't have. And that's where Outbound builds upon itself. Otherwise, what will happen is people will take these tactics, use them, and they'll get worse over time. And so that's like the I saw you just raise money. I like money. Can I have your money? So that's usually what a lot of these like turn into. And they just perform terribly because that there's nothing that's unique about your business in that message.
And couldn't that also be too like a commodity sales approach where it's a good approach, but because you didn't narrow it down to why that end solution wasn't narrow enough that
Yeah.
you now just created a process where you're competing.
Yeah.
So
Yes,
now
that's
you're going
right.
to deal with
Yeah.
procurement, or you're going to go in there like, that's right. We're going to actually, you nailed the solution. We're going to put it out to bid. You should bid.
Yes,
And
yes,
you're like,
that's
oh
exactly
my
right.
God,
Yeah,
what did
yeah,
I
yeah.
just do?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And what you will have done is and it's funny, I built an automated process for mainstreet.com, and they got 11% positive reply rate from Series A founders, and I got the same message about a month later from their competitor. And I'm like, I wrote that. It's I wrote that like, oh man, we should have had some unique insight here that was like so unique to them that even if the competitor copied the tactics, they can't copy the insight.
Isn't that like the old brand story too? That if somebody went and scraped off all the branding and somebody said something or showed them something, they're like, hey, that looks familiar. That's
Yeah,
not you.
yeah. There's a reason that you're uh like no one wakes up in the morning like I could have an RC cola, and it's like it's probably the same sugar water as Coke, but no one ever thinks that way. All right, let me, Nicholas. I'm going to list off the companies that we're going to go through and share my screen and just like kind of decode what I'm seeing here.
Okay.
But I want to make sure that we have the list right here. We've got airdeck.co,
Yep.
Alice ALYCE.com,
Yep.
pickle PICKLE AI.com,
Yep.
tech TECHJUTSU.ca,
Yep. Picture
uh,
too.
try lavender lavender.com,
Yep. Lavender.
simppl.com, only one vowel there. That's a good startup. vanhack.com, and try chameleon CHAMELEON.com. Did I miss anyone?
Nope. You're good.
Okay, great.
You ready?
All right,
I'll give
yeah,
you
let
your.
me share my screen here. Let's see
Oh,
if I can.
I have to. So you just got to put it back what you just had, and I have to go and put it on. That's all.
Okay, let's share screen. I got to pick the right screen here. screen
I believe in
3.
you.
It's thanks. Yeah, I always joke. It's like we can get to the moon, but screen sharing somehow evades us. Um,
Ta-da!
all right. So let's talk about Air Deck.
Air deck is on deck.
Air, great. What's up, Air Deck? Basically, what Air Deck does, and this is sort of from me reading the site, is that they'll make PowerPoint a digitally native experience with shareable links and audio voiceovers. So the first thing that I did when I looked at the site is I'm like, okay, who's it for? And this to me is it's for everyone. It's customer success, sales, product managers, human resources, marketing. It's like, okay. So what I did is I kind of went through and I looked at some of these unique value props like tracking your sales, educating your customer, scaling your touch points, selling done once. And so these are um, not as specific as they need to be to talk to sales. And that's just the sort of place that I know best. Now, I look at human resources. I was a little bit, this is the place that I went to is human resources. So what I'm going to do is the hot take that we're going to talk about is the HR use case. And uh, because this is really, really hard to do for 12 different verticals with 3 different buyer personas. And so I'm just going to talk today about uh, the pain that they solve of allowing people to download context faster and avoid onboarding waste. So this
Mhm,
is Nicholas, you just started, and it's going to take you 4 months to ramp up.
mhm,
Because you actually, weirdly, as a sales rep, might be the case, because you don't know your customer, you're a sales rep, you don't know the market, etc. So
mhm,
we're going to talk just about this as a use case. So, um, the first thing that I care about is instead of doing this at the list level, I always think about TAM scoring, total addressable market scoring. So, how can we look across their entire market? And you can Apollo .io allows you to download bunches of domains. They don't charge you. And another great service is harmonic.ai. So they've got 1.2 million companies in their database. I dare not say their price, but it's cheap, especially related to Crunchbase. So those are great solutions to be able to download like kind of a TAM list. Um, and so what I want to know is like, who cares about the employee experience? The first thing I want to know is like, what companies are really into helping their employees succeed. And like a good example of what we might look at here is like, I know that Airtable, if you go to their careers page, and by the way, like brickstack.com is a place that you can go do this kind of scoring at scale. But if you go to their careers page, you can see like why we're here. Here's all their departments, and they have let's see, what, uh, life at Airtable. This is the section. So they've got like employee case studies. Look at this. Look at how insane this is. Health and wellness, competitive HSA, FSAs, like complimentary one medical, sick time, parental leave for birthing and non-birthing parents. Both parents, amazing. This is like a Airtable ad here. Work from home budget. They have a budget for work from home. Backup childcare. How insane is that? Everyone, go work at Airtable. But these are the types of things that like learning and development wallet. Wow. So it's like no matter where you are in your career, there's always more to learn. So you have a wallet. So now I know that Airtable is like as it's a core value of theirs to invest in their employees, right? So that's great. That's like remote friendly perks. So like a work from home stipend, right? Work from home budget that we found.
mhm,
um, you also might contrast that with product complexity. Airtable might be a bad example here. I think it's a pretty simple product, but in the case that like if you come to work at AirTech, there's a lot of product complexity that you have to understand, right? You have to understand it for customer success, for sales, for product managers, human resources, for marketing, right? And so that onboarding is going to be hard because you have to understand all those use cases, especially if you're in sales. Um, the other thing is like, we're a first party provider of jobs data. So one of the places that I might look here is like, who cares about the employee experience, right? So we've done this for customers where we look at things like DE&I, diversity, equity, and inclusion, right? These are people that want to onboard and make folks really feel at home at their companies, right? So candidate experience might be. You might also look at turnover rates here. So who is actually having a high turnover because their onboarding is maybe bad, right? And especially turnover in the 1, 2, 3 months. They got a lot of turnover in a short period of time, right? So one thing that you might use like people data labs to look at some of this information. Who has like turnover in a short period of time? Um, and Harmonic has some good data here on employee headcount growth. So you probably want the inverse of that, or this might be, and this is why it has to come from your customers, right? I'm just talking about tactics here, but really this needs to come from your customers. This might be growth. It might be growth in certain departments. It might be growth at the company level where it's like, wow, okay, you just went from X to Z number of total people. That is we know from our existing customers that after the move from 50 to 100 is where AirDeck is like the best at, because people can share that information really quickly. You might be a high number of folks in the people function. So what you might look for is who has, relative to their total employees, who has out of their 100 employees, who has 10 people in HR. Like, wow, that's like a really heavy amount of folks in HR. They really care about getting this culture thing right. You might also look for, like, I know that startups use words like vibe manager and like head of culture and head of people. And so they might find that they can help the folks that are people folks more than head of HR, because the people
Mm.
folks are like interested in like using new technologies. And this is a particularly like they probably don't want to go to market to HR. The HR folks never have any budget here, so but so you might take that message to someone else who manages the pain, and the HR might be the person that implements it, but the buyer might be another department. Um, then I think about other sort of TAM scoring for product market fit generally. So who's an audio believer? So like one of the folks that we were chatting with a while back is rewatch.com. They're like internal YouTube. And so you can see on their site, it's like video, 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 right? And there are some sites where like audio will just some B2B sites where audio will just start playing. Like, folks, don't do that. But but those are people that are like, I believe in audio so much that I'm just going to start playing an audio clip the second you join my site. Or there's a bunch of videos, right? So they've got a lot of YouTube embeds, right? Look for words like Loom in their job description, right? So do they use like semi competitors here? Do they believe in that communication mechanism? What about a niche industry? So it might be that AirDeck is particularly great with like surgeons. I mean, I don't know, I'm making stuff up here, but like it's like, hey, you have to cut out a liver, and your doctor is, you coming on. You don't want to onboard them in a minute. You want them to really understand how to do that. So this might be like hardware products that have some particularly complex challenges here. Um, who is producing and shipping a lot of marketing PDFs on their site? So density of PDFs, right? This is something that you could use brickstack.com to figure out. It's like, who has just a ton of PDFs on their site, and they want to take those PDFs and make them a better experience, right? Even in their support documents, a lot of PDFs. Who runs a ton of webinars where you might want to have leave behinds? They talk about that a little bit in their marketing, right? So who can you find a webinar page for that that has a lot of webinars? And then maybe who is onboarding frequently? So what about like a staffing company that needs to onboard for a bunch of different companies at once? So what are agencies that are helping folks onboard? And so um, I would say like, kind of one version of what this messaging looks like is, and I'll just kind of sort of read this off is, uh, hey, Joey, 120 employees hired in just 60 days. Like, you must be exhausted. I really love how you care about the candidate experience and that you have a lot of cultural documentation. Plus, the multiple videos on your site mean to me that you really love to show and not tell. Uh, I know the industry is pretty. I know that your industry is pretty technically complex, and I'm curious. Does it take your employees more than 3 months to get ramped up? are you actively working on getting your employees up and running faster? So I didn't say anything about AirDeck. Like I didn't talk at all about what they do. I didn't talk at all about the solution. All I'm trying to verify is like these things lead me to this problem. Like are you actively focusing on that? And so this is all about the targeting, and all I'm doing is describing the targeting to them. Now, ideally, I'd like to be able to bring a unique insight about AirDeck. I don't have that unique insight. I couldn't tell from their website, but that's kind of what this looks like. So I'm going to pause there for a second, and this will sort of close our chapter on Air Deck before we get to Alice.
Okay.
Anything that stood out to you, Nicholas, there that you want to talk about a little further before we dive on to the next one?
I think would be fun, like a fun play to plant the seed is to focus on onboarding sales because we know that ramp is an issue. And that if
Yeah,
you have culture and we have the whole like ethical play, that's a good place to stand your ground. And if you're tapping into the HR in order to go in, because sales has a budget too, then
yeah.
later on, the know and grow play is strong.
Yeah, yeah. And this is a great point, is that you need to have some first principles thinking about these solutions. So first principles thinking here is like, okay, I just like happen to know that HR doesn't have a budget, so it's going to be harder to sell in an HR. And you also have to adjust for your eyes being big in your stomach. This is a company wide problem. And so, who's ever kind of working on some of the marketing and sales stuff here, you're going to have to manage up and say to your CEO and to your C suite, like, hey, if we could only do go to market for one of these verticals, I think it should be this vertical because they have budget, because we have seen the most number of most number of existing customers use us for this, because when we survey those customers, they say, "Oh my gosh, like this is without Air Deck, my business would collapse," right? And so
Hmm.
you're going to find, customer success like, "Yeah, it's great. We send it every now and again," but if it's sales, it's like, "Wow." When we hire a sales rep with Air Deck versus without, like they ramp in 2 weeks versus 3 months. It's like, wow, what does that cost you? So
Or
you
even
kind of have
retention.
yeah, or yeah, exactly. Exactly. Retention might be a good one where it's like, wow, with Air Deck, people stay. If we onboard them with Air Deck, people stay for 8 months. Versus like before the average turnover was, 2 months or something.
Yeah.
So you need to figure that out. But really the hardest part here is what shouldn't we do? Like, and so that's what the CMO here should ask the founder, like, which of these should we, if you had to pick only one, I think it should be this one for these reasons. And if we look at our existing customers and the churn rate there, I think we should not go to market with these other pieces. And Kyle Williams, brickstack.com, talks a lot about this framework as radar and laser. So it's like you can have a product that is in radar mode, which is like we sell a little bit to everyone, and a product that's in laser mode, which is Alice. We sell to B2B companies that are trying to expand new channels. And then you can have a go to market that's in radar mode, which is like we sell to a little bit of everyone, and laser mode. And so Alice might have a laser product, but they may be doing go to market in a radar way, which is like, oh, it's for sales teams, it's for HR teams that want personalized gifting, it's for onboarding teams. And so even if you have a product that's in laser mode, you might be doing go to market in a radar mode. And that's okay, but the goal is to get to laser mode, usually where it's like you have a go to market that is so crisp about a product that is so crisp, and that's when things start to spiral. All right, let's go on to Alice. So send your B2B leads gifts that's unique to their interest. So I'm familiar with Alice. Uh, friends with Sarah Pion, who used to work there, and I just think it's a great idea. It's taking the kind of Sendoso idea, the direct mail idea, and really making it personal. I know friends that have got gifts from them. One person got a unique book about Porsches, and he's a Porsche mechanic and also a B2B lead gen guy. So kind of funny. It was really, really personal. And so you can see door openers, success milestones, events, renewals, onboarding. So they are kind of they're talking a little bit about wide stuff here. And if you look at, let's look at solutions actually. Yeah, by teams or by use case. So you can see that that they do have some different use cases here. the way that I will talk about, I'm going to talk about the sales use case specifically, or sales or marketing,
Okay.
and really it's like the pain that they solve for is most channels are generic and saturated by a ton of your competitors, and you need to break through the noise. That's how I would describe what they do. And so what I really care about here when I think about TAM scoring is like who has elements of every function they serve. So I'm looking at like demand gen. So who has high spend in demand gen? You can get this from like SimilarWeb and looking at the ratio of their traffic from places like Facebook and LinkedIn to get some understanding of their marketing spend. There are some other tools that you can get exact marketing spend, but who's using best in class ABM tools? So Mutiny HQ, who's using Segment for their CDP, who's using a tool like Demandbase or some of these ABM or Terminus, some of these ABM targeting tools. Um,
Mhm.
I would use brickstack.com to score by field marketing. So who has events on their website? You might use blueprintgtm.com, my company, to look at who's hiring, and they talk about who's hiring like event roles, who's talking about words like podcast and Pinterest ads, like who's really like exploring this second ring of channels. Um, uh, who has I might like the score for integrations. So they talk about little integrations that they do. So those might be table stakes. So you might want to know sort of basic stuff about who uses Salesforce and who has some of the other tools that they use. Um, I want to know who sells high ticket items, right? Like you're not going to send someone a freaking guitar if you sell a $12 product. You're like, it doesn't
The
matter if you
CAC
acquire that
payback's
guy.
like 5
Yeah.
years.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, did you learn? And then what your follow up looks like, did you learn that Beatles song yet? So yeah, so I really want to know like who sells these really high ticket items. So I'm using brickstack.com to look at things in the pricing page that talk about SSO, right? Single sign on. I know that single sign on means like expensive things. Contact us for, for pricing. I'm definitely looking at that kind of stuff. Um, Maybe also who has a wide variety of customer types. So now not only do I know they sell expensive things, they sell expensive things to a lot of different types of people, right? So I might look for this sort of product and solutions section, and I might look at say, oh, okay, they sell to a variety of different people now. Um, I might look at who has poor MQL to SQ rates. So this is like something you might look in job description. So if people are like improve, like they'll say words like improve our conversion rate or like reduce churn for the customer success case, for example. Um, I might look at who is like active in other channels. So like, are you a B2B company with like a TikTok? Like how crazy is that? If you're like experimenting with TikTok, you're an insane B2B company that's like totally open to trying new things. Um, who cares about meeting stick rate? So are they using tools like Qualified, which is a chatbot provider? Great company, or Chili Piper also. So I'm scoring their website and looking to see if they care about those sort of meeting stick rates, that they're really have an advanced motion. Um, and I think I saw that Alice allows you to gift to charity too. So I might score culture pages and talk
Hmm.
about the companies that really believe in charitable causes. And sort of there's like the 1% of the Planet Fund. So there are some companies that are really active about, and I would speak to them to a charity message, right? Like I know there's a product that's called, it's gated, and what they do is they will block unknown senders from sending you email, and they'll say, if you want to chat to me, you have to donate to a charity of my cause. Um, so I might want to look at who are the users of gated, right? Because those are the people that care about that type of a tip. But I did have an idea for Alice that I really now I don't know that they can do this, but one of the things that I might think about is that they should build a growth loop, which is like they know who their customers sent stuff to, so they should use that data in their outreach. And so what this might look like in messaging is like, yo, Armando, did you know that 34 of your employees have already received gifts from Alice? Jessica, Frank, Kelly, Franklin all got gifts from companies you do business with, like SalesLoft, Salesforce, Sales Cloud. silly sales guru. I'm just making stuff up. I noticed that your new demand generator you just hired is working on improving your MQL to SQL rates, right? This is what you know via job descriptions. And was curious if you're willing to try an off the wall strategy that your employees have already been on the other end of that they seem to love. Happy to make
Mhm.
an intro. This is crazy. Happy to make an intro to Kelly on your team, on your own team for a testimonial. So I'm happy to intro you to someone that you already work with that has received an Alice gift, right? So yeah, there's no reason why Alice shouldn't. There may be some challenge that they have with taking that data, but I don't see why they can't use derived data about their prospects to go after their prospects, if you will.
Some epic social proof.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like, hey, I mean, and you could. This is all, as Kyle Williams said, like it's turtles all the way down. So like you could totally say like, you got this particular gift, but I think even if you reverse into this problem, look at your customers and say, who have we shipped the most number of gift to by company, and go after them. It's like
Mhm.
here's the, and ideally if they tied into their CRM and had close rates, and they could say something about the number of closed deals that company has taken because of an Alice gift. This could backfire. Someone's like, wait a minute, we're buying things. This is like a quid pro quo. I don't know, but it's something to think about. All right, shall we jump on to Pickle?
Let's
So
do
Pickle
it.
AI. So Pickle AI. So basically, extract lessons from your sales meetings is what I see here. So they use AirDeck. So how funny is that? It's like
Hey,
we just
one
looked at the logo section.
one thing, Jordan.
Yeah.
Guys, as you're listening, if you have questions, throw it into
Oh
the
yeah.
comments
Yeah.
and then I'll pull it up and I'll get Jordan to answer them. So please, as we're going through, don't worry, Jordan will keep going. I will make sure your questions get answered. And if you know that someone isn't here that would get value from this, throw them into the comments and then that they can watch the recording later.
Yeah, absolutely. I love to do this live. Um, so could have been a Slack meeting for everyone else. So meetings, productivity, team collaboration, conversation intelligence. I'm going to talk about this again, and I don't mean to be a broken record here, but I'm going to talk about it from the sales. It seems like they mostly sell to sales teams. So this is great. So I really, this company is much more. I think of all the three companies, this is probably the most sort of laser mode company here. That it's like pretty clear who they sell to and what they do. So the pain that they solve is like sales teams and maybe product teams can't improve without learning what they did right or wrong, and this is allows them to bring the best lessons from your best closer to everyone else and find the worst lessons and teach people not to do them. So, and when I say worst, I mean the best opportunities for learning.
Mhm.
So the things that I'm thinking about is like I want to know the size of the sales team relative to the marketing team and total number of employees. So I have some understanding of the density of the sales motion. And I might also combine that with sales growth here to have some understanding about what that looks like. Um, I want to understand the complexity of the product. So again, this is a brickstack.com masterclass here, but I'm looking at terms like SSO, PCI. I'm looking at the different variants here to understand how hard it is for them to sell. So, and think about this as sort of a triangle here. If I know that you have that 30% of your employees are sales, I know that you have a small density of marketing folks. So now I kind of know that you're mostly sales led, and I have an understanding that you sell to kind of 3 or 4 or 5 different industries. Boy, I know that your learnings are going to be really painful, and I know that you need some technology to help that because you got a lot of sales selling to a lot of things with a few number of employees and a few number of folks in marketing, or maybe even a lot of folks in marketing. So you're driving a bunch of leads. So you're a marketing and sales heavy organization with a small number of people that need to really learn and iterate, and maybe you have bad close rates. So I might look at complexity in the messaging here. So what does some of your messaging on your pages look like? How complex is it? There's a Fleischer reading test that you can run through. Some of Brickstack does this to understand how dense their materials are on their site to know how hard it is to understand them.
Hmm.
And I might look at jargon too on the homepage. There's some ways to do some keyword scoring here. I want to look at length of sales cycle. So how I might look at job descriptions to find that. So who has a heavy enterprise motion where they talk about where they use words like medpic or some, sales methodology. So you can have some understanding that they're advanced. And if I can combine that with the fact that people only have 100 employees or something, suddenly I know, wow, they're a really advanced sales organization. And then who has sales operations? So who has folks that are actively trying to improve their process? So who's
That makes
already
sense.
investing in tools? So, and what some messaging looks like is like a 23% growth in sales in the last 60 days. Awesome. I bet selling enterprise product with SSO means that your sales cycles are long and complex. With 23 people in sales, I can imagine all the great lessons that must be trapped in your Zoom sales calls. Plus, I couldn't detect any call intelligence tools in any of your recent job descriptions. So filtering out folks that already have stuff. Would understanding how all of your sales reps are talking to your customers help your positioning and improve your deal flow? When Larry Lobster Co. installed Pickle, their fast growing sales team moved average deal cycles from 90 days to 45 days and improved their conversion rate by 10% to close one deal. Would a 10% improvement in conversion help your fast growing team? So that's what that looks like. All right. Let's move on.
Tech
Yeah.
jutsu.
This is a hard one. So basically, my understanding of what they do is they reduce spam that comes in your call center. So making sure that that only real people are getting through your call center. So this is the pain they solve for, is that call centers are getting scammed by being asked for users' passwords. So a scammer calls into the bank account and says, "Hey, I lost my password. Can you reset it for me?" So they do two-factor auth to make sure that it's like this thing here. They do two-factor auth. Basically, it's wasted time and money. So agents are jumping through hoops to verify users, and it's annoying. So I want to look at who has risk. So who has, like, if I call my if I call my local grocery store, their support line, it's like, well, what's the risk there? Okay, well, I get a pineapple that I didn't order, or someone orders a pineapple on my behalf. But if I'm calling my bank, that's a totally different experience, right? And so if
Mhm.
someone can get into my password bank, they can ruin my life. So I want to know who has risk, and I want to score their legal terms to understand, like, who's investing in things like single sign-on, who has legal terms. It's like, we protect you, that they really are thinking about that risk. So who has exposure? So I want to score the sites with Brickstack here to how many people do you have a support line? What does your support function look like? Do you have like call extension, blah, blah, blah. Who's trying to reduce call time? So do you have a chat, a knowledge center? Do you, keywords and job descriptions are like AHT, average handle time. So do you use keywords like that in some of your job descriptions? Um, who needs to make sure that their identity is verified? So these are like in some industry level targeting. It might be like, and who's like on the edge here, like cryptocurrency might be a really good fit for this. So I won't go into the messaging because we got to move on, but those are the types of things that I would look for here. All right, lavender. I'm embarrassed that I haven't used lavender, and this is like, totally could be beneficial for. And these are like super
Awesome.
legit logos. I need to be a customer of lavender. Yo, lavender, hit me up and make me buy. So uh, uh, pretty simple value prop, and actually the greatest thing in lavender site is, oh, I saw it. I think it's the beginning here. Perfect. This is the money screenshot right here. Like, long words, length in email, ask question, too casual, too complex, like no spam words detected. Like the body length, question count. So the thing that I'm trying to sort of figure out from, they help salespeople write better emails. Like, that's kind of what they do. It's for sales folks, and the pain that they solve is that is weirdly enough kind of the pain that my company solves, which is like your sales emails need replies, and to do that you need to write better emails. And this like IU check is just a wonderful check. It's like the one of the first things that I do. It's like it's so easy to be like, Nicholas, here's who I am. Here's everything you're doing. Here's do you want to buy? Like, that's what, like, most that, if you just like listen to the tone of a sales email, that's what it sounds like. It's like, it's a deep breath and then me talking at you and not talking to you. So what I'm looking for is like, I'm looking for words like outreach and sales loft in their job descriptions to understand, are they using some sort of automation here? Um, I might actually be looking at their domain and score how bad they are generally at messaging. So it's like, do they have like gigantic long pages with hard to, where they have a particular messaging challenge? Um,
Mm.
uh, So I might want to understand, again, we talked to this about this pattern too, is like how many products do they have and what is the complexity of those products, and those two things together mean that it's going to be hard to describe what you do to someone, so you need as much help as possible. um, uh, so I want to understand what their go-to-market motion looks like. So this is where sort of more enterprise versus transactional. So are they more sales-led versus demand gen? That's like really important. I want to know heavy amount of SDRs to AEs. So I want to look at ratios of SDRs to AEs. I might want to look at specific titles of AEs. So enterprise versus commercial AE breakdown. So they might have a higher rate of outbound or different types of outbound depending on the diversity of the sales team. Um, who is just starting their sales motion. So that's something that we would look at Blueprint jobs. Like we'll look at words like first outbound or like, other types of things that they're about to undertake this. It might be that they're a better fit for people that have done outbound for a while and they need to, that's the inflection point that they come at. I might look at words like Grammarly in job descriptions, or who talks a lot about like copywriting, right? They talk a lot about in their job descriptions about hiring folks to help with copy. And that might not even be in the sales function. It might be in the product function or something. You might be able to sort of leapfrog there. Um, so what this kind of messaging looks like is like, looks like you have a ton of reps relative to your total employees. And based on what I could tell from some of your job descriptions, your sales reps write their own emails. That's really, really key. I would look for that in job descriptions. Like create sequences is how people talk about this usually, or
Mhm.
write sequences or write outbound. On average, sales reps get a 0.1% reply rate when they write their own emails. With Lavender AI, they get 5x their reply. They 5x their replies to a 0.5% reply rate. I'm just making this stuff up, by the way. So maybe you get way better with Lavender. Um, if your 10 SDRs use Lavender and could deliver a 5x improvement in pipeline, would that make a difference to you? If you'd like, and this is like, oh, some crazy shit I just invented. There is a way, I think, to put a form inside an email. If you like, you can copy and paste their copy into this email and see what Lavender would generate live. So what like you totally could do this in an email is put a little box, have them paste things, push a button, and then like push them through a lead flow. So bring Lavender in the sales email that you send.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, I'm inventing stuff up. So we got to go
Until
on
you got
fast mode.
flagged, and then it looked like spam.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So do we have to end at the hour? Is that otherwise
No,
it's the
we can keep
B2B
going
hour
as
now?
long as you're good.
Okay. Let's see. I think I should be all right. Let me do the good old calendar check. I am good. All right. So we're gonna go over because I don't want to. It's unfair that simpler comes at the end of the sentence. So that they should get everything here. They paid good money to be on this podcast, Nicholas. Like, yeah, they write me a check.
Let's do it.
uh, Great. So simpler is improvement for employee communication. Uh, so it's for really the way that I read this is like it's for bigger companies that have trouble connecting to their employees, and so it's basically Facebook for intranet, if you will, and looking at some of their like huge, amazing companies. Good for them. Like what a logo section. How proud must this company be? Like Fox, AAA, DocuSign. These are legit companies. So good on them for closing some amazing companies. The world's easiest enterprise grade intranet software. This is great. They know exactly who they are. They know what they are. Uh, and look at this. It's like I love this. This is so enterprisey, right? Forrester Wave or the Gartner quadrant. This is like for big companies if you're in those quadrants. So I'm just like, this is probably one of my favorite hot takes because I think that there's just so much here. So the pain that they saw is distributed workforces are misaligned, and so this is really key. Distributed workforces. So it feels like when I look through a lot of this site, right, and this when I see charts like this, it's like, oh my gosh, this company knows their customers. So they know adoption rate, like they decrease time employee onboarding. This is what a really laser go to market looks like, Nicholas, because they're like, look, we can quantify this. And so there's a reason that in some of these other sites that we looked at, you don't see a lot of these types of charts because people don't know, because they sell to so many folks that they don't have the time. And some of this is staged. They're not at the stage yet to be able to quantify this. But
Mhm.
this to me is like This is great. I love this. So engagement scores at Eurostars. I don't know what some of these mean, but like this like 5x adoption rate, decrease in support requests at Workday. God, there's so much insight here that they have. It's like Workday, that says something about the type of company that they target. A 52% decrease in support, right? So this pain that I'm pitching to the person. I have a friend that manages Workday, and she's like, oh my gosh, the amount of support requests I get. So actually, I'll make an intro. Simpler, contact me. It's someone that works at eBay, so it's like probably a pretty good lead for you.
Lauren, hit up Jordan.
Yeah, yeah. Please do. This is you get double the value here. I'll make an intro to the person that deals when Workday support requests, and that's good. See, and I like instantly connected it because they're so specific in their messaging. I understand the value
Crispy,
that they provide.
crispy.
Crispy, yeah. And now I'm not going to the buffet anymore, right? I like this is a fine sushi restaurant, and I'm like, I know the person that likes sushi. I know the person like that has this this exact problem. So so let's talk about this. The TAM scoring, the stuff that I just get really excited simply because like who has a remote first team with a high number of employees in different time zones. So some of this data is going to be hard to find. It's going to be expensive to find, but you know, if you're in the Forrester wave, you can pay for data. So it's better than throwing a bunch of like Forrester wave. You know, it's like that's just like so legit that these deals must be gigantic. So and if you don't have pricing on your homepage, like you're so expensive. So which is great. I shouldn't say that. Maybe they have an intro price. But so I want to know who's a remote first team. So in our data set, for example, we can tell who's hiring remote. What I'm going to do is I'm going to look at historical job titles, and Brickstack might actually be able to do this. Kyle Williams, smack me if you can't do this, but I want to look at words like different countries. So if I can score, thanks for some the screen share. So if I can score different companies by the countries that they serve to, Bulgaria, United States, Canada, Mexico, right? So now I have some idea of dispersion of where they're hiring and where their talent is out. I might look at headquarters. So I think SavePrimer.com might be able to get this data, which is like on LinkedIn, how many different headquarters do they have, right? A wide variety of headcount in numerous different departments. So if I have some understanding of their dispersion of departments, that means that, you know, if you have a marketing support and like an other department and you've got 100 employees, like obviously, you know, you could go with the level of like, oh, 100 employees, they don't need this. But if you have 100 employees and each 10 of them is in a different department, the company is working on like so many different flows that actually that intranet is probably going to be more useful to them than if it's like, hey, this is just a sales alignment challenge, and that's going to be easier because we all kind of speak the same language. I might want to look at a ton of employee churn here, where you have to onboard people. Now, this could go both ways. I don't have the insight here. I'm not an intranet specialist, but you might actually look at who has low churn or high churn. So it might be that actually people have all this like deep knowledge that haven't shared it, and you're growing fast, or the turnover is so much so that it's like you need to extract that information before they leave to the next place. So churn might go in two directions. I want to know who has like accuracy. So I might look in job descriptions here. This is a Microsoft product to it's something they integrate with. So I'm scoring for additional sort of enterprise motions. So tech integrations. I might actually look in like this might be a case where it's like I look for tools like more tools like Marketo and less like Segment. I'm like,
Mm.
oh, okay, or Pardot, right? It's like, okay, these are companies like these are big, gigantic enterprise companies using big, gigantic enterprise pieces of software. I know that that they are sort of intranet friendly with a lot of the stuff that we integrate with. I might want to know what percentage of their company joined during COVID. So like basically the burnout of water of the virtual water cooler, right? It's like, oh, okay, well, you have 1,000 people and 800 of them joined since March of 2020. And so I generally don't like to get into, you know, virology marketing here, but I think actually this has an implication for how people feel about their connection with a company. Who has a lot of fun remote events. So plug to miniexhibitions.com. It's a great company that will help you do like fun virtual events with like cocktails and stuff. So remember how we were looking at Airtable and we saw that they talk a lot about different types of things. So I might use a Brickstack for who has like events, who talks about like company events. Who has advanced people functions? We talked about like culture and vibe. Now, because they're selling to larger enterprises, that may be silly, right? Maybe they don't talk about culture and vibe. But there might be other titles like Workday Administrator. Oh yeah, that gets me so excited. I'm like, there is a person dedicated to the software that I'm going to deliver a 52% decrease in like return their time. And I'm going to quantify that. I'm going to say, you have 8 people in Workday, and Workday people, I know they're getting paid $200,000 a year, $300,000 a year. It's a enterprise grade software. Like, wow. So this is like, we're going to save you $3 million over the course of the year just in reducing their support request alone. Like, great. Um, who needs something more secure than Slack? So I might look at companies that really care about security. They have a security section on their site who's talking about PCI compliant. There's all of these sorts of ISO standards, for example. Who cares about candidate experience or DE&I? So really, if they're investing in that kind of diversity, equity, inclusion, do they really want to bring people on? Same kind of themes that we looked at earlier. I looked at maybe has bad systems like SharePoint. I might look at. I know that I feel like everyone uses SharePoint and everyone is unhappy with SharePoint. I was like a SharePoint administrator back in the day, and shout out to Microsoft. Maybe they've changed since the last decade, but yeah. So that's simpler. I think they have tremendous opportunity here. Let's look at VanHack. Hire tech talent fast, get qualified candidates. So this is also super. Look at this. You can't even scroll. This VanHack is like so they like know exactly what they do. They're like, we don't need to scroll. So it's like, all right, fine, let me start hiring. And look at this. This is like that's like so confident. They're like, this is what we do. Get 10 of your hardest to fill roles in less than 48 hours. So I'm so excited about VanHack because we've got good data for them. But this is great too because you can actually type in the skills. So this is like they're going to try to deliver you value. I might argue that they should do something a little bit more advanced than this to get your email. Excuse me, but hired so developers. Okay, they go after developers, and you're going to hire diverse talent. So this is the D&I stuff that we're talking about, right? That they care about diversity here. Like, oh, they talk about like women in tech. This is amazing. Relocate, work remotely, or both. So what I'm thinking about here is that their value here is that you can hire engineers in record time. The pain is that tech companies have a hard time hiring engineers. And let's look at some case studies. The case studies are my favorite. This is how you know that a company knows who their customers are. And you can find, if you're a sales rep, the first thing you should do is go to your own company's case study section. And if you don't have a case study section, you should go to your leadership and be like, I'm not going to work here until you build a case study section. I made that. Don't do that. But so look at this. Like, this is great. So, they shouldn't link to a PDF here, but largest food delivery platform, right? And what the gold is in the customer quotes. So
I see an
it-
opportunity.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Just everyone should just sell to everyone else that we're doing here. A customer approach working with. So hosting foreign recruitment events. Look at that. Look at how much gold there is there. Oh my God, you're a sales rep. Like, who is hosting foreign recruitment events, right? So who is in the United States, but is, is traveling to, to France to run an event, right? Like, boom, that's you, right? There's like basically this customer having this quote is so helpful because you understand what that looks like. So spend time in your case studies. Oh, think of a great company. My friend Sid works there. Oh, this is a video, so I can't watch that here. And this is a website versus a PDF. Ilya, this guy. So yeah, this is the type of thing that, and it looks like there's a lot of Canada in here. Shout out to the neighbor from the north. And speed is everything. Streamlined process. So I'm looking at quotes here. All right.
They're going to start bashing us. I'm like, and we have Jordan is having technical difficulties now.
No. I'll tell you, I don't think I've ever driven a more beautiful road than the road from Calgary to Banff, Canada. Oh my gosh, it's like a painting. So yeah. So why don't you kill the screen share and let's go into some TAM scoring. So I want to know about candidates that investing in the career experience or on the career page, right? We talked about, this is like a theme that we talk about pretty often here because the dispersion of the types of companies that are helping here are pretty similar. I want to know average hire time. So one of the things that that you could look at with my data is you could say who has had the most number of senior engineering positions open for the longest period of time, or even
Mm,
worse, junior number of engineering positions. Right. So it's like, oh, okay, you have 100 people at your company, you have 30 open engineering jobs with React, with Python, with the technologies that I know I can help you with. And those jobs have been open for 8 months. Like, oh my gosh. So, what is the lost productivity there? What is the unique insight? If Van Hack can take you from that 8 months to 48 hours, huge. Who is hiring hard to find senior talent? So you could use my data here too. So let's talk about what does senior talent look like. That might be like weirdly a cobalt engineer. Who you need someone from the 19. You need a programmer from the 1980s that can program for Excel. Right, that person is going to be impossible to find. So that's like a
like
perfect
the
example.
Amazon of outsourcing.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I think that and obviously, I'm sure that they don't help hire for Cobalt, but they hire for a lot of like modern technologies. But there might be some engineering technologies that are really hard to find where they have some understanding of like what is our date. This is where you go back to your customer. What does our database look like? Oh, okay. Well, actually, in our marketplace right now, we have React engineers. Like the React engineers those are the groups that we have the most number of great candidates for. So match that insight to the market, and it doesn't matter if your competitor copies that you have the React engineers, you have the insight, you know that you can help them. Um, I might look at complicated products. So, who are companies where the engineers have to do some very, very specific things? So, this is where I'd use brickstack.com to be able to score the types of products that they're selling and what types of engineers I think that they might need. And this is where I look at a lot of jargony terms, right? We talked about SOC 2 and stuff. But that might be or PCI compliance. I know that's you got to have one guy locked up in a vault somewhere that that he can't give out. I don't know. PCI compliance is insane.
I'm allowed
Um,
out.
yeah,
Just my
yeah, yeah,
hidey
yeah,
hole.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I let up, but it's like, what's the code? Who is it? It's like it's the dance when getting into a Lyft or an Uber. It's like, are you here for me? Am I here for you? It's like which one of us is faking it?
My pass card stopped working.
Yeah, 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 exactly. Um, I might also look at like churn and engineering, right? So who has churn and engineering? I think People Data Labs might have this data. Um, so yeah, so those are things to look at. I think we got one more here.
Try Chameleon. You ready?
Try Chameleon. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I love how you can make me share my screen. This is like so powerful. I hope does that end when the live is over, or just is this a power that I've granted you for for all of time?
Hopefully, just for the live show.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't
yeah.
need. I don't need to follow you around all day.
Yeah, yeah, okay. Let's hope so. Just I like noodles, so order me some noodles on Amazon if you can still do this. All right, self-serve made simple. Alice is going to send me some noodles, and they better not do that. AI gifting. Take this transcript. All right, self-serve made simple. Oh, this is good. So the first thing I want to know this is a company that is just going to have to use brickstack.com to get this data, because you want to know who has a PLG motion or who has a product that you can sign in or sign up to. That is B2B is my guess. So my guess is, and let's kind of look at some of their customers. But yeah, mixed panel high spot. So B2B companies. So really what you want to know is which B2B companies have a sign up or sign in, so you can totally narrow the market. The PLG motion is surprisingly super nascent. There's not a lot of like true PLG companies out there, and there's a lot of folks that have software that you can't log in or sign up to. So that's this. I think this is going to be hard. My guess is that they're not selling to people that do not have self-serve today. That what they're doing is they're selling to people that have self-serve that want to make it better. Turn user new advantage with sophisticated in-product experiences and surveys. So what I want to look is I want to score the site to understand what does their motion look like. I want to score their pricing, not chameleons, but their customers. I want to score their pricing to see, like, okay, perfect. Like, oh, look at this. This is what you want. You want a let's talk. right? And if you look at like user permissions, enhanced security, so I want to score their customers for this word here, enterprise in an enterprise bucket. I also love this, right? This is at $849 a month. That means that not only is their enterprise motion expensive, but they have sort of middle of the road plans. This means that they have a PLG sort of motion. Try for free is that they have a PLG motion here, and this is expensive enough that I want to understand: do they really care about this? So it's like PLG motion with gigantic enterprise option. So what you really want to do is how can I get these people to understand the product so that there's a likelihood for them to hit this. So Chameleon is a perfect company for Chameleon, weirdly enough, right? Hopefully that they dog food their own product. Like this is a good, also like seats, billing cycle, right? Like look at this, SAML, SSO, right? Like this is so, no one what does this mean? This is like so enterprisey, right? Oh, look at, these are so enterprisey. So I just so I'm scoring pricing, I'm scoring pages of their customers for words like this. Micro surveys. So I might want to look at who cares about MPS or CSAT, right? I could look in their job descriptions for this. Sometimes you'll see the pop up on the site like, we'd like to know your opinion. So tools like Medallia, I might look at. Audience segments. So this is, do they care about, so we're talking again about these, about the customers of Chameleon. The pricing is just a good way to think about that. So audience segment. So target user base, a variety of data sources. So are they using tools like segment, like Mixpanel, like Pendo, like Keep on their site, right? Where they think about segmentation a lot. Dynamic personalization. So I think that Brickstack can even determine how many different types of chat bots they deploy. Kyle's going to kill me if he can't do this stuff. I'm overselling his product, but I might want to know, okay, you have Drift on your site and you deploy one chat playbook, like boring, but you have Drift and you have like Drift and Clear Reveal, and we can tell that you have 20 different playbooks. Like, aha, you care about dynamic personalization. Short links for tours. Their product might also be good for companies that are that have we talked about scoring the different product motions and how many different personas, etc. So this tour might be relevant by persona. So the more personas with a PLG and enterprise motion, the better you're going to be. Event triggering, real-time event data. This you might be able to tell with like backend stuff. So I don't this isn't my forte, but there probably are systems here where there that can support sort of real-time event triggering. So my guess is that there are anti-patterns here. Like if you use a tool that doesn't support sort of real-time analytics or real-time event data, that you're a bad fit here. Scheduling, that might be interesting. Experience reporting. A/B testing, I might look at technology. So they do use tools like Google Optimize or Optimizely. Conversion tracking goals. Do they have a pixel for tracking marketing events here where they actually are thinking about conversion tracking? I don't know how you can tell this at the product level. Maybe at the product level, you might look at in the job descriptions, you might look at for different keywords that talk about product level stuff, rate limits, alerting, localization. I definitely would use brickstack.com to look for. We've worked with Kyle to look at different legal, like EN, ES, etc., to understand what different locations they're in. Like if you go to John Deere's site, you can see like 1,000 different little emojis. So I might want to understand what countries they're in. I might look at languages on their support page to determine how many different languages they have. Combined with kind of the number of folks on their team, it's like, okay, well, you have 20 people, you're in Spain, but you have 13 different languages on your support page. Boy, localization is probably really important to segment. So I would definitely score for integrations. This is relatively easy to do. You can use a tool like BuiltWith to do some of this segmentation scoring. BuiltWith, I think, is an all-you-can-eat model. So I definitely recommend just buying that. It's like, I don't know, $500 a month for unlimited data. So that's a great platform. Help center. So this is where Brickstack could really help you, is that they actually can score help centers here. They can score support sites. So do they have a chat function for support? Do they have a call function? Do they have a self-serve option to understand how advanced is their support motion? Yeah, so let me make sure that if you could kill the screen share, I'm going to look at
Yep.
some of the other notes that I took and make sure PLG like motion, we talked about that. Product led growth friction. So if they have, we talked a little bit about that. Do they have a lot of products and audiences, a complex product that's hard to build self serve? Or do people like, are they making a step towards this but don't have it? So you'll see a lot of this when you look at like demo buttons. So if you look at buttons, they'll say like, get a free demo. And it's like, what does that mean? Like, well, it's better than call sales, but it's not yet a PLG motion. So
Mm-hmm.
what you might want to do is that might be a perfect person where it's like, oh, it seems like you want to give a demo, but you can't yet. And so it's like you're almost there. So you've taken a lot of steps. We talked about
Mm.
support documentation in the product category. You might want to look at a connection between the time that they update their support docs and how often they launch their app. So thinking about things like app deployment. So you can tell this like by app store notes. So you can see how often they release their app. If they have an API page, Brickstack could probably tell you the change log. So it's like, wow, you have a lot of change log motions here, but I noticed that your support documents are about a year old. Like, wow, what if you could not have to update those support documents and update and basically give some of that work to the product team? That's probably a good one for them. NPS return, we talked about that. I might want to know about who cares about design. So do they use tools like Webflow? Are they, because they really talk about like customization of CSS. So like, who are design friendly companies that really care about design? We've looked at words like custom illustrations in job descriptions before, like, oh wow, you're hiring an illustrator. um, and then we talk about measuring cohorts and has enough traffic. So traffic is really, really important. So I would buy some SimilarWeb or SpyFu data here, because if you have a PLG motion plus enterprise and you get 10 hits a week, like forget it. Don't even bother pitching to that person. All right.
Makes sense.
B2B. Should we call it the B2B Power Hour and a half? I mean, I feel like I burn it. I feel like it's like calling your company the dollar store, and it's like, well, how much are things now? That's like $1.50 now. So it's
It's
like I feel like
inflation.
it's
B2B
inflation.
power
Yeah,
hour with
yeah,
inflation.
yeah. Exactly. It's
Have you seen the
inflation.
gas prices?
Yeah. Exactly. Sorry for giving you more gas than you paid for. Hopefully this is the other way around. I didn't take more of your time than it was worth.
Okay, guys. We went through all these hot takes. What questions you got for Jordan? We got him for a few more minutes and then he's got a jet. So what do you guys
Yeah,
got?
yeah. Happy to share.
I think it's interesting how you comb through the website and you're looking at that radar versus laser and you're dialing in. And I think that's really interesting too, because it's like, okay, what bets are we making? What bets are worth
Yeah,
taking? Because
yeah.
we have limited resources, so you can't
Yes,
tackle everything. So what
that's the
bets are
key.
worth taking? And then how are you tracking it to know that it's a bet that's paying off?
Yes,
Because
yeah,
you
and
know, you're
this is hard, but I talk about it like, "Oh, yeah, just, like, score the public web," for people that it's like, no, like, you can't, and so what will happen is that if I chat with a customer and they say, "Hey, can you bring me leads, next week?" And I'll be like, you're talking to the wrong person. That's not me. What I can do is I can help you understand what you've been doing, help you take a clear bet on a persona, a target market, pick one. And so, generally I'll get people and they're like, "Oh my gosh, I'm in the candy store." And I'm like, "Do you want a Reese's or a peanut butter cup? Or do you want a Reese's or like a Butterfinger?" They're like, "But I want to eat it all." And it's like, "No, like
no.
let's start with it's like, look, let's just pick one. And we can be thoughtful about how we pick. Like, don't get me wrong, but the one question you should go back to is like, what shouldn't we do this quarter? Who shouldn't we go after?
I feel
What
like it's like
markets
a
shouldn't
Doctor
we tackle?
Evil. You're like every persona you or every like industry you want over one is a $1 billion.
Yeah. No, do not pick the industry that you cannot go after. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah. This is a different. I have a bunch of bad accents though. That's the
I feel like you're gonna have
that's
to make an
that's
ad out of that.
that's the B2B horror hour. That's a
You should put
different
that
that's
on
a
your
different
website. You
podcast.
got like
Hello,
do your one
hello,
playbook and then you're like two playbooks, and it's like
hello. We
you
serve
can't.
all markets and all problems. Yeah. Sharks with freaking laser beams attached to their heads. Yeah. No, don't do that. Yeah. So just I hope no one's gonna watch this, right? Like, are people gonna watch this?
Somebody's gonna go and like cut this piece out and turn it into a GIF and send it to you.
I know. Oh my God,
Jamie, can you make
it's
that
gonna.
happen?
Yeah. Oh my God, that's gonna be the thing, right? This is when we know that AI has destroyed the world. When AI is gonna uh, uh, automate gifs of public versions of you and send it to you. There's gonna be nothing about the product. There's gonna be no theory. There's gonna be no insight. It's like we're all just gonna get memes of ourselves on the internet and be like, "Do you want to buy? Here's a picture of you doing some silly thing that you did. Do you want to buy?" Oh, it's my nightmare.
I'm watching this, remembering it forever. Oh,
This is gonna go viral.
Sarah
That's
asked a
terrible.
question. Pull it up here. Sarah asked, I was going to ask if we should use RepView to see which companies are doing this right.
But it seems like looking at each company with a "Who We Are" section.
Listed benefits employee sounds like a better
Sorry, cut off there.
with the better.
Yeah, what did the last part say?
Sounds like a better way of gauging how much a company's leadership has invested in the success of their own employees. Would this be a correct assumption?
Sorry, can you repeat the question to me?
I'll repeat the whole thing. I was going to
Yeah.
ask if we should use RepView to see which of these companies are doing this right. But it seems like looking at the existing marketing efforts of each company and their "Who We Are" section with listed benefits for employees sounds like a better way of gauging how much a company's leadership has invested in the success of their employees. Would this be a correct assumption? That is a big question.
Wow. I don't know that I even understand it. Well, I can only that I didn't I saw the paintbrush, but I didn't see the paint. So I apologize if I got this wrong. Um, I think that I think what you're asking is a tactics question when maybe you should be thinking about a strategy question here. It's like getting the data is so important, but you need to understand first your existing customers and what they really care about. So
I think
people,
it's actually a little bit different. I'm going to take a
oh
stab
yeah,
because I know
yeah, yeah,
Sarah,
please,
and
please,
then
please,
I'll
please,
get you to go and build on it.
yeah.
So I think Sarah was wondering more on the lines of what if your company hasn't done the hard work of figuring this out and expects you to?
Oh, wow. I'm sorry, and you're not alone, is what I will say to that. What I will do is I have a spreadsheet that I will send to my customers that I will drop in. There's show notes that we can put in after the case. So I'll send it to
Mhm.
you, Ciro. But it's not crazy long. It's not like this is generally in our engagements, this takes us 2 months to do. And I think that this is harder to do as an internal employee. I'm the fantastic bad guy that's like, you have to do this as part of this. And people are like, oh, well, he's from the outside, so I have to do it. As a internal employee, I think companies might give you a hard time for this, but I would say I would ask the question like, where's our documentation on who buys our product and why they buy it, and also give me quotes. You could probably do this by just saying, send me all of our case studies with my customers' quotes in them. And so you'll just find so much rich intelligence there to mine from. And go schedule some time with your customers. Like I might even just build this. I would go to my boss and say, if I was an SDR, I would say, can I get a month of just like last month's quota? And I will justify everything I'm doing. Like just give me a month to not be on quota.
Mhm.
Um, and then when you pull that information, suddenly you can start to say, you're just going to be much, much more efficient because you can understand your customer's pain, how they describe it, how they talk about it, uh, and and then that allows you to pitch to leadership to say, hey, it seems like this is the pain that we solve. If I look at our SDR messaging, this is what we're going to market. It doesn't really talk about that pain at all. Why don't we invest in tools? And this could start as small as outsourcers. Like, and the key with doing some of this with outsourcers is you just need a model that abstracts what you know from your customers to a sort of an A B thing. So that might be like, for example, we talked about SSO, so single sign on. So it's like have an outsourcer click on your prospect's pricing. Is SSO yes or no? Like, and sure, there's much more advanced ways. Brickstack.com is a perfect, more sort of advanced tool to do this for the entire market, but there's no reason that you can't hire an outsourcer at $5 to $10 an hour to just say, take this list of 1,000 accounts and tell me who has SSO, PCI, and what you should do is the best way to do this is look at your existing customers and see if you can notice patterns in your existing customers that are related to your products. Like, oh, okay, I'm seeing this pattern over and over and over again from our existing customers. Boy, we should do X because this seems to happen with our existing customers too.
We had a good question from anonymous LinkedIn user. Somebody's settings isn't letting
It's
us see who you are. Sorry. How do you make the right bets?
Uh,
This
27 on the roulette table is my favorite number. This is a hard question because this is about a mental of having a good mental model of your customers and the pain. And by the way, no one gets this right. I've talked with a company that has raised trillions, and they're like, here are three personas for the four problems for the, and it's like, are you sure? And they're like, no. And so don't like you're not alone. And making the right bets is a uh, is is a hard challenge. And the way that I would go about it is look at your existing customers, classify them by industry, pain point. Look, Pareto principle thinking here. So where's 80% of that contract value coming from? So you can say, aha, I have kind of this amounts in X industry and X use case for my current customers. Then I'd go score the market. And this is the hard thing. There's not a lot of great tooling out there. Harmonic might be some way to kind of look at this. Brickstack might be another. We could do this for you for jobs, but you really the challenging thing is how much there is there. So even a simple exercise like running a query in LinkedIn, like if you let's say you sell to sales teams in North America that have a APAC rep, like whatever, you could run that search in LinkedIn Sales Navigator, and it's like there's eight. You have eight companies that are in that pattern. You're like, oh well, shit. There's no market there. No one does that. It takes 10 seconds, but because no one has a theory about who they sell to, why they sell to them. And so that's what you need to develop is like a theory of doing this. And I might even say if your company has a limited time off, be like, I need to take a 3-week vacation to not be in meetings to like to understand this.
Couldn't you also look at the severity and like how often it's coming up? So it's like
Yeah.
that old joke about like, do you have a business or do you just have an expensive habit
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
hobby?
This is
So
this is exactly right. Like
like
MAUs, monthly active users, daily active users. Like, who is the person that's logging into your software every day? And I think superhuman is like, what would you do without us, right? Like they ask that question, right?
that
Like
product
what would
market fit.
yeah, yeah. So that's something that you might ask is like go and what I like to do is I like to have a conversation with existing customers and like, hey, I don't think you should have bought us. Like it seems like you're and let them defend you. And they're like, and if they say like, hey, you know what, you're kind of right, Jordan. It's like, oh. But if they're like, no, 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 every day I log into Simpler, I can't tell you, I learned X, Y, or Z. Oh my gosh, like no, I actually can I pay you more? It's like, what would happen if I 10x my price? They're like, oh, my boss would be mad, but we'd have no choice but to pay you.
Mm.
So like you need go ask provocative questions to your existing customers, and you'll hear this really quick. It's like, I never really think about you. We installed you one time 6 months ago, and we're in a year contract, so we have to use you. But and just don't go after that
Be
route.
careful too that you're not picking a problem they don't know exists. Like
Yeah,
that they have no budget for. And
yeah.
maybe if you're like layering, maybe look at what exists so that you're not trying to recreate a category or something right off the bat because
You have to
that's an
educate them.
expensive game.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to educate them, which means that you have to be even better at this sort of laser mode, right? So it's okay. You can pick Gong didn't exist at some point, right? And so it was a market leader. Servicebell.com. It's like live video chat for your website.
So
That's like
cool.
I'm all into that. And they, that concept is just existing. And so they're figuring out who they talk to. And so it happens. But you need a theory uh, about how you educate people, and you just got to try it for some existing customers and take what those existing customers already know to your next customers.
And Lauren had asked something around that too of like, what could I do better? Like research takes too long. sometimes you shouldn't be doing the research, the company should.
Yes, that's right. That's right. Yes,
Too
yeah,
expensive on an individual level.
yeah, you need to sell this to the company. So this is a case of managing up. Is that you have thrown me into the lion's den and you've opened the lion cages. Like, why would you do that to me? uh, and so it's like I'm being bitten, and they're like, well, here's a blanket.
Cool.
Like
Call
that
more.
doesn't. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Cool, Kalmar. Like this hurts really. It's like throw some more lions in. It's like no, do not. Yeah, so you have to and what I might even say is just, go to your manager like, "Hey, will you take my role for a day? Just do what I do." Like you need people to I know. I look at Nicholas like, "Oh god." Yeah.
Jordan's got a
It's like,
level of savage that I don't know
yeah.
would keep you
Yeah, yeah.
employed very
Yeah,
long.
yeah. Yeah, look, I'm a bad employee. I've got fired from almost every job I've ever had. So I don't know that I would take my employment advice, but yeah, I mean, I think it's that people don't have enough empathy for about 8 failures led you to this terrible place as an SDR. And 7.9 of them are not related to you.
I will say that you can use Sales Nav to get started,
Yeah.
but it's not perfect. And what I would do is build on success. So I would use what
Yeah.
we talked about today,
Hmm.
go and timestamp it, go back, rewatch it, and look at what filters on Sales Nav you can use today.
Yeah.
Build out your list, check it twice,
Hmm.
make sure they're all in your TAM and not
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah.
I was trying to go and play on that. I kind of
So
ruined
yeah,
it
it's
at the end.
little
Damn it.
March Christmas
Yeah.
metaphor. Really, it's a
Well,
little early.
the right account list kind of is a Christmas present, isn't
It's
it? Or
true.
early birthday, depending on which way
Okay,
you look
okay,
at
all
it.
right. There you go. There you go. You did it. Wow. I was like, this is going off a cliff, and you're like, cliff or opportunity? Yeah.
Just in
So
the nick of time, I
yeah,
guess.
exactly. Yeah,
I
yeah.
will never
Start.
say
Yeah,
that on show again.
start. Start there, and also like you can get there if your boss won't give you a $500 a month budget to hire outsourcers. Like this is cheap, but you need to decode the data and which data is important, and go like you could just read your case studies. Go read your case studies. If people talk about like live event training, okay, give them a list and record yourself with a loom and say, "Oh, look for this, look for this." Like just look over 20 accounts and just record what you find and structure it in a spreadsheet. Do they have this? Yes, yes, yes. Do they have this? Yes, yes, yes. An outsourcer can do the hard work, but you have to do the decoding. You have to do the first step, and then it's about leverage. And then you just have to create leverage.
And you don't have to do them all either. Like, do the first 100 prospects, evaluate them, record yourself, figure out what are the 2 or 3 like characteristics that stand out. And then it's hard, it's manual, it might take you a whole
Yeah,
freaking day,
yeah.
but one day,
One
an
day, yeah,
8-hour investment to go and change your entire career isn't so bad.
yeah.
It's just, why would you keep guessing and checking when you could just dive in, figure it out, and then it changes your whole discovery, your whole qualification, and you bring value right from day one. Because now
Well,
you're
and
starting that with
yes.
that pain, right? Like what we
And
talked about
you've
with the
yes,
fridge.
yes, and you've already done this, by the way. You've just done it by every account manually. So you have these patterns. If you've been in the rep role for a while and you've sold this product for a while, you've done this. You just didn't know that there was a way to think about it like you just have to remove your context, right? Like when you see an account, you're like, ah, that's good for me. Well, why is it good for you? Oh, well, it's because they talk about enterprise grade software. Well, what does that mean? This is enterprise grade software. This is enterprise grade software. This is what a PLG motion looks like. This is what it looks like. And then just tell an outsourcer, here's a list of 1,000 accounts. And that becomes the message that you send. All that research, all you have to do is describe that research back to your lead. And that's how we get to a world where it's not like, just automate it. Like you can automate it, like, but you first need a good theory with which to automate. And that's the problem is people are like, oh, I have to hit my quota, so I
Well,
can't
I'm
do
burning
that.
TAM right now at 100 counts a day. What if I could burn 1,000
Yeah,
1,000
yeah,
accounts a day?
yeah, yeah. That's right. That's right.
But we're coming at that
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
So thank you everyone for tuning in, and everyone that's listening right now, and all your great questions. And thank you, Jordan, for diving in. I know it was a lot of work to do these GTM hot takes,
Happy to.
and we really appreciate it. And we really appreciate you putting in the power hour plus inflation so that we could
Yeah,
get it all out
yes.
there.
That's the world we live in. Yeah, hour 40. I mean, it's the price of gas, like you said. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much. And anybody, make sure you connect with Jordan. He is on LinkedIn and blueprintgtm.com.
That's right.
And go check out what they're doing. If you have questions, shoot him questions. Kyle
Yeah, I'd love
Williams is another great person to go and talk to.
great guy to talk to. Yeah, yeah,
And
brickstack.com is
like I've
Kyle
said in
Williamson.
previous shows, you don't have to suffer in silence. It's 2022. If you need help, ask. We're here.
Ask. We're here. Yeah. Thanks so much for having me, Nicholas. And ask. I'd love to help.
Thank you very much. Take care, everyone.
Adios.
Have a great weekend.